Gr- Greetings and salutations to all my followers of darkness, shadow scavengers, and villainy aficionados. Welcome, bienvenue to one of my good old fashioned reviews. And today I have a proper treat to review today. A show that I've been really looking forward ever since it was announced, and especially after I've seen the Netflix official trailer about it. So here I am. Without further ado, I'm gonna do a review about Devil May Cry. Now, I'm not talking about the 2007 Devil May Cry. I'm talking about the 2025 that came out on April 3rd. I finally got a chance to see it, and let me tell you, it is crazy. It is one crazy anime. Oh my god! Like what they did with this show, like I had a pure blast with it. I mean, seriously, I had a pure blast with it. Like, I really love all the characters. I love the way how they treated like Dante and like the fighting sequences, the story. Like, there was a lot of things about the show that I really, really enjoyed. But that, but basically to kind of give you an idea, the overall plot of the TV show is basically, you have Dante, who is this like, a demon hunter for hire, who has been hunted down by this government organization known as Darkom, who is led by the vice president William Baines. I think that's his name. Who also comes into a conflict with another, like, demon obsessed slash terrorist who calls himself the White Rabbit, a very freaky villain, by the way, who seeks revenge on the human race. And that's basically, the overall plot of it. And even though okay, I mean, let's just make this one thing perfectly clear. Like when I was watching this show, I definitely have seen a lot of times that this show was made not just simply like for like normal anime watchers, but this at the same time for Devil May Cry fans. And I think like plot wise and everything, I think it became like a very like a perfect balance between like fandom and like a casual like anime watchers, because let's be frank, not every single person in the world ever played Devil May Cry or they ever heard of the game, so you kind of so usually when you have projects like this, you kind of have to like bring like some sort of a balance, like not just try, like not just make it too much like outside the video game lore, but at the same time trying to make it too much for the video game fans and everything, so you have to make a balance, and when it comes to that, I do think like this the plot overall of the show. I think like it gave us like a perfect balance. Like yeah, it gave us like like a lot of like lore material when it comes to like certain backstories and weapons, certain like names and characters. Like sure, they gave us all that, but also in the same time they tried to give us in a way that I think like normal like anime watchers would be like overall like satisfied. Also, in the same time, they will not feel confused. Like we're like what is going on? Who is this character? Who is that character? Like like I think like every single one of them felt like they were told in a like like I said, in a perfectly good balanced way. So again, going back to the plot, with all these elements going on, I thought like the plot is it's quite, like surprisingly very easy to follow. That's personally what I think. Like it's very easy to follow from the beginning to the very end. I don't think any normal anime or just TV watchers, I don't think like they will be confused with like some certain plot points in this particular like TV show. I mean, sure, like there are a few things that maybe they will compel them to do some research about, especially when it comes to like certain name droppings, certain name drops, and like Dante's backstory, also Lady's backstory as well. So it might be compelling for some of them to do a little bit of research, but overall I think like they still balance these two sides of a coin, in a perfect way, like I said, between video game fans and like normal TV watchers and everything, and also when it comes to the video game fans, I think like I think they'll be pleasantly surprised with how they dealt with Devil May Cry, because I can definitely see, even just like from the plot, I can definitely see that the crew behind it, I can definitely see that this show was done with love, like with people who really know the lore of Devil May Cry. Now, with that being said, one of the things that I also have to discuss about is the voice cast. I mean, the voice cast, like, was pretty good in this one. From like the main characters, from Dante, Lady, the White Rabbit, the Vice President Baines, to like some certain Darkom members from demons and everything. Like, the voice cast for this show was pretty impressive. Pretty impressive, no doubt about that. Like, and also I have to also congratulate. Primarily, I have to go to Johnny Young Bosch, who is not actually a stranger when it comes to Devil May Cry, because he did, I remember, voice the character. I think his name was Nero, I think. So he's not a stranger when it comes to Devil May Cry. But the way how he brought Dante to life, I thought like it was pretty well done, amazing job. I think like he got a lot of the elements. I mean, I'm gonna talk about Dante a little bit later, but I just wanted to mention that he actually did a pretty good job in this one. Also, the actress who voiced Lady, I thought she also did actually a pretty good job voicing her character. Although personally, like I said, I'm not a big Devil May Cry gamer. So there's a lot of characters in this that I'm not quite familiar with. It Lady, unfortunately, yes, surprisingly, I'm not that much familiar with her from the games. So when I saw her, like, character and her backstory and everything, I thought like, I was kind of like, basically, it just simply came out of nowhere for me. But I thought like, the overall, but I thought the actress, I think her name was Scout Taylor Compton. I think that's her actual name. She voiced Mary Ann Arkham, aka Lady. And I thought like she also did a pretty good job when it comes to like voiceover. And also, I do have to say, one of the other like characters that really surprised me in this one was the one on the top called, I think, Enzo Ferrino. I think he was voiced by a guy by, I think, Chris Coppola, if I'm not mistaken, and he was hilarious in this one. Okay, he was hilarious. And, I like the comedy elements that he added to his voiceover for this character was like pretty amazing, pretty amazing. Again, very like very traditional like character. I don't know if he was just created for the show, but or like he actually appeared in the games before. I don't know, but I really liked his voice performance. Now, the other two characters, the voiceover, I do have to mention. First one, I have to congratulate Hon Lee, who voiced the White Rabbit. His voice performance for me personally was like one of my favorites in the show. Every single scene he was in, like, he made the White Rabbit at the same time, like, a little bit like, amusing, but also at the same time, like, diabolical, intimidating, scary, creepy. Like, the way how he voiced this character was absolutely amazing. And of course, the other one do have to mention, I mean, I'm still surprised that he was actually cast in this. I do have to congratulate, I mean, go rest his soul, Kevin Conroy. Yes, like the Kevin Conroy, our Batman. He was part of Devil May Cry as the Vice President Baines, and as much of a dialogue that he could have like recorded before he sadly passed away, his performance, like, for me personally, it was mesmerizing. Okay, yes, I mean, it might be a strong word, but like, it was mesmerizing, because usually, like, first and foremost, very rarely you see Kevin Conroy voice a villain. Number one. Number two, we rarely saw him voice a character outside Batman, throughout his career. So, I mean, there were a few options, like, for example, Merman from Masters of the Universe. Also, when he was voicing Hush in the Batman Arkham games, and now this, like, there were like few, also I remember he voiced, even just very briefly, he also voiced another character from more like more like a childish Masters of the Universe. I think he voiced Hordak in that one. Not quite sure about that, but like, again, there were like few voice roles throughout his career that he did outside Batman. And I have to tell you, Vice President Baines, it is definitely one of my favorites. the way how he voiced this character, oh my god, like, from the serious tone, from, like, the dark side of the character, like the way how he portrayed the tone of his voice throughout this show. I mean, I know that he voiced as much as he could, and then later on I know he was replaced by a guy named, I think, Ian James Carlett or something, for like recording like additional dialogue for the character. Now again, I don't have an idea how much Kevin Conroy did he record for this character, but for what he did, I was absolutely astounded by it. Like, even though he voiced a character that most of you, like myself, will hate all the way towards the end, but still the way he performed, I would say it is definitely became one of my favorite Kevin Conroy voiceovers that he ever did. Like he was absolutely amazing for what they give him to do. So yeah, when it comes to, like, with that, also there are other few like voice cast members, like cast members, that was really surprised to see in this. Like, for example, there was, like, the freaking Tina Majorino. She voiced a member of the Darkcom team called Sentry, I think. Also, I mean, Kenny Omega, the professional wrestler, like, he was also in this. I know that he voiced like a mercenary who was hired to capture Dante. Like, also that was kind of pretty cool to hear him as well. In this, like, yeah, I mean, like, there were a few, like, like, there's a lot of very impressive like voice cast for the show, and every single one of them delivered, like, absolutely. Like, when it comes to the voice when it comes to voice performances, none of them fell flat, none of them fell bad. Every single one of them delivered all the way towards the end. Now, one of the things I do have to talk about is, of course, Dante. How was Dante portrayed in this show? Now, of course, because it's one of the biggest questions, especially for the Devil May Cry fans, we'll talk about. And I have to tell you, for like the casual knowledge, for the minimal knowledge I have of his character, I think that he was portrayed pretty good in this one. I think when it comes to the tone of his voice, the comedic side of his character, the tragic backstory, the serious moments, the angry moments, the transformation, the skills with his guns, with the sword. Although I do remember he had some two specific guns in the game that he didn't had in this TV series. So maybe he's gonna, if the TV show continues, maybe he's gonna get him a little bit later. I don't know. But for what I've seen from Dante, I think like every single one of every single like moment with him, like I thought it was actually done. It was actually executed pretty good. Like I said, from his voice performance, from like his body language to like like I said, certain skills, fight sequences, the power, the tragic backstory. Now, when it comes to the backstory, now again the part with his mother and his twin brother. I know his twin brother is how do you pronounce his name? Virgil or Virgil? I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I know he had a twin brother. I know that his mother and his twin brother supposedly died because of the demons and everything. I don't know if that actually also happened in the game. That part I'm not sure. But the one thing I do know that he's the son of Sparta. That he's like half demon, just like his twin brother. And I thought like that part as well, the way how he discovered his identity and who he was and everything. Now I know there's gonna be some people say, "Oh, you said spoilers," but honestly, like the majority of the people who are familiar with Devil May Cry lore, they know this part of Dante's backstory. But still, I feel like those kind of elements to his character, I thought like they were actually delivered pretty well. Like I said, they made a perfect good balance between like game lore, but at the same time also tried to make it fresh and like like a what's the word I was trying to say, like a like an easy well paced road, even for like normal anime watchers who are not familiar in the game. Like I said, perfectly balanced, and I thought that his character did the same thing. I love his relationship with like with the White Rabbit. I love his relationship with the character of Lady. One of my friends also told me, who also watched the TV show, told me that his relationship with Lady was on point. That their relationship was also kind of like very similar, like it was in the show, in the game. If any of you think I'm wrong, correct me. Like I said, my knowledge of Devil May Cry is pretty small. I loved his relationship with his little partner, which was like that, Enzo Ferrino. I loved that as well. And also, one of the things I was kind of, impressed that they did with Dante is also they kind of added his like love for that particular, like, ice cream that we saw him eating at the very beginning. So overall, when it comes to his character, I liked it. I liked it. The way how they delivered a lot of the elements of his character, I thought like it was pretty well done. So when it comes to that, no complaints. Now, like I said, this show had so many different other characters. Like I said, you have the lady, you have Enzo Ferrino, you have Vice President Baines, you had like different like Darkom agents, different like demons. Now I can talk about like all of them one by one, but I thought like for the most part, before I go to lady, I thought like for the most part all the characters were pretty interesting. Like I said, none of them felt underused, none of them felt flat, none of them felt like generic, none of them felt like they were not developed enough and everything. Like every single one of them, for me personally, they had their place throughout the entire TV series, because that's one of the things why I love anime in general, because they're, you do not like they do not only explore the main characters or the villains, they explore every single the character for the most part in in this like world building they have in almost every single particular anime or manga they create. Like the anime always makes you care for almost every single character throughout your watch. And that's one of the things I love about anime, because like even there are certain moments, without giving any spoilers, there are certain moments even with the demons that really makes you think, but also at the same time really makes you care for them. The bad ones and the good ones. There are like few moments that really kind of makes you think and care for them, because that's the magic of anime. Like like I said, they don't only make you care about the main characters. They also make you care about the villains. They also make you care about like other supporting to all the way to minor characters as well. So now, with that being said, I want to go a little bit to the character of Lady now, because outside Dante and the villains, I felt like she was also a very interesting character. Now, like I said, I'm not familiar with her character that much throughout the game. So when it comes to her overall backstory, the way how she became who she is now, I don't know if this is like very true to what happened to the games, or maybe it was slightly changed to kind of like be more acceptable with the pace of like this TV show. I don't know, but for what I've seen, I really liked the lady. I really liked her character, her badassery, her overall reasoning, why she hates demons, why she wants to obliterate them, why she, she always follows every single rule, the overall obsession that she has, like, with demons in general, kind of also involving with, like, her tragic backstory and everything, like, and also her relationship with Dante. I thought that was kind of, cool as well. But also at the same time, I also loved her conflicts, for like during one part of the story. Again, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but there's a certain part in the story in which you see Lady being conflicted with, like, her point of view with the demons, because all the way until that point, she hated their guts. She hated their guts. Like, she wanted to obliterate them, because she saw them as the pure evil, like, the true monsters, for what they are and everything, because of her past. But after that moment, I love the little conflict that she had with those, with like her point of view with the demons, which also kind of all the way till the end, kind of changed her overall point of view on on life in general, and also like that you should not judge a book by its cover, basically, and again, from her skills, from her like personality. Now I do. One of the things I do remember seeing that her design is a little bit different in the games than what she was here, but that personally, I didn't mind. that's another thing. Like I didn't mind her like some changes to her design. The one thing I will say I was kind of happy is going back a little bit to Dante is that they kept his design almost the same as it was in the games. But when it comes to the changes on the lady, and after seeing her original design from the games, I kind of understand why they changed it a little bit. But overall, I didn't mind it. So lady, overall, the way how she was, the way I said lady. But anyway, the overall how her character was developed throughout all the throughout the entire 8 episodes. I liked her all the way from the beginning to the very end. I mean, at the beginning, I found it alongside other viewers. I feel like they're gonna find her a little bit annoying and a little bit stubborn and everything. But like throughout her journey, throughout all the episodes and everything, all the way towards the end, I think a lot of people will change their mind when it comes to lady's character and everything. So overall, again, I can talk about her all over and over. But overall, for what I will for what it was delivered when it comes to her character, I was satisfied. I was completely, absolutely satisfied with her. Now, with that, also, I have to talk about the villains. Now, the villains in this one, I will say there are two. Okay, there are two villains in this one. One is, of course, the main villain, who is the White Rabbit, and of course, the secondary one is the Vice President Baines. And each and both of them are unique, different from each other, different beliefs, different goals, and I have to tell you the way how they were written as perfect villains. Perfect villains. I mean, I'm gonna start with the White Rabbit. Like at first, especially when you see the trailer. I mean, I know the White Rabbit. First and foremost, I know the White Rabbit. I know I've seen him before. That he appeared in some sort of like a Devil May Cry manga. I think he appeared. I know that he appeared once in a Devil May Cry manga. I'm not sure when and how, but I do remember hearing about that. Even though that's kind of like my first overall official introduction to the character, and I loved him. Every single scene that he was in, he was great. He was humorous. He was terrifying. He was diabolical. He was psychotic. He was charming. Like you can put him, and I'm not kidding. You can if he wasn't in Devil May Cry universe, you can put him even as a member of Batman's Rogues Gallery. I'm not kidding you. He could look like he could be like a pretty great Batman villain. By the way, because from his mannerism, the abilities and everything, I think he would be a great, a little at the same time weird and bizarre. Even though he would have been a weird and bizarre looking villain, but I think he would be a great Batman villain for sure. And also, if you remove the whole bunny, the whole rabbit face and everything, I think he would have been a great James Bond villain as well. There, I said it. But overall, the White Rabbit, the way how he developed, like I said, from his overall skills, from his backstory, from the desire, the conviction, the reasoning behind why he wants to, take the color, they take the two pieces of the collar to kind of bring the demons into the human world and everything. Again, like I said, it makes you at first the White Rabbit, you think okay, he's gonna be a very casual villain, but no. Once you see his backstory, you're gonna start actually understand him. You can actually start seeing the logic. You can kind of start seeing his point of view, why he's doing what he's doing, why he's on this crusade in the first place. And once you see that, you're gonna start to understand. And also, but you're either gonna feel sad or you're gonna feel pity for him, for what for the overall work that he's doing and everything. But again, so overall, White Rabbit, really well done, really well crafted villain. It's a real shame that he's only gonna be part of season one. I would have wished that they would have kept him, for future stories and everything, if Devil May Cry 2025 continues. But overall, for what they give us, he was a great start. As a villain, he was a great start. Now, going back to the Vice President Baines. Oh my God. This guy, not only that he not only that he is insane, okay, like that's the first, that's the first thing I will say about him, okay. Not only that he is insane, but this guy is like he is like a genocidal zealot. I mean, like he's a zealot. Like he's a genocidal fanatic. Like this guy. Like oh my god. Like at first you think like okay, he's kind of like a tough government official and everything. Like okay, I get it. But once you see more and more of him throughout the entire show, I was like, oh my god, this guy is a lunatic. And the way how this genocidal, fanatic, lunatic elements, the way how Kevin Conroy brought it to life, wow. I was impressed, like, but at the same time, I was like, okay, I hate his guts. I hate this character. I hope he dies. Seriously, I hope he gets massacred or something, like, because like even he's like villainous character was interesting, like all the way till the end, just like the White Rabbit. So like literally, like, and if you look at closer, like White Rabbit and Vice President Baines, they're literally two sides of a coin, literally. If you look at closely, like their actions and everything, but overall, I thought the villains were done in a splendid, splendid way. Now, one of the other things I also have to talk about is the demons. Now, I think like some people might complain about the demons because they look very generic. They look very like they have very casual design, like something that we have seen like all the way before, like even like in the Castlevania franchise and everything, because yeah, I mean, if you compare the look of the demons from this show and the video games, for what I've seen, yes, the demons from the video games, they have a much more artistic, creative look, for sure. But honestly, I didn't mind the demons. The overall design of each and every one of them, from like the shape shifting to the two brothers, from like the poison ivy / demon lady to the like demonic knight and everything. I felt like they all looked. I feel like they all looked pretty good for what they were. Even like the normal demons, even I thought that even they looked pretty good as well. So again, no complaint to their designs. But one thing for sure, if this show continues, that we're definitely going to see more and more creatively, artistically made demons for sure, absolutely. But for what I've seen from them, I like them. I like for what I've seen. And also one of the things I love, which I mentioned before, is that every single one of those demons, they have character. Well, basically, they have a personality. They are, like each and every one of them are different from each other. And I really, really love that, because that's usually what anime does. Like they make you care for every single character you come by. With that being said, now I have to talk about the animation. The animation in this TV show is splendid, almost spotless. The way how they animated the facial expressions, the world building, the action sequences, the like certain movements, the transformations, like this is literally one of the best animated video game projects I've ever seen. Absolutely splendid. The only thing, and I'm sad to say this, but the only thing I had a problem with was the 3D animation of the demons. That's the one thing I never understood, because like there's certain demons that for the most part, are 3D animated, and then like in some little moments they are like 2D animated. So basically going from 2D to 3D and 3D to 2D, like all this time, like that's the one thing that it didn't irritate me, but I did find a little bit annoying. So that's my only flaw in the animation. But like again, that's like 90. That's like 95, but that's like 5%. The other 95%, everything was absolutely mesmerizing. Every single part of the animation, besides that 5%, was done a chef's kiss. Also, the thing I also have to mention, we have to talk about, is the action. The action in the show, oh my god, it was breathless. Well made, well animated, well animated-ish choreographed. That's one thing that when it comes to Devil May Cry, they also fucking delivered. Like when it comes to the overall action, like if you go see this TV show and you think like are there gonna be action and everything? Well, don't worry, because the action is everywhere and it's really really well done. From like ladies action sequences, from like Dante's fighting, from like the even like the White Rabbit fighting sequences, like the action is really really well done. It didn't felt out of place at all from the beginning to the very end. Now, one of the things now for sure is that this show is definitely not made for kids, okay? Because there's a lot of violence, a lot of blood, which of course, for Devil May Cry fans, this is not unusual. And they brought all of this here as well, and they done it in a really really good way. Now, this show, I will say this. Uh, it's a really mixed bag when it comes to like because it has because of humor, emotions, and serious tone. Like it's a mixture, it's a mix of all these three elements, and I thought that they were done in a pretty good way, like really well balanced. Like for example, the humor. Most of the part of the humor comes from Dante, which of course it's no which is not a big surprise. But also, the one thing that really got my attention, besides the humor, was mostly the emotions and the serious tone of the show. Like the emotions more precisely are centered around like certain like character backstories. For the most part. But even still, like even the serious stones, they all had their place in the show. Absolutely, from the very beginning to the very end, none of them felt out of place. Again, for me, I know there's gonna be a lot of people who's gonna say that oh well, that maybe like it was too humorous, maybe less humorous, maybe like not too much emotional, la la la. Okay, I mean, look, we all have different opinions, we all have different tastes, we all have different like criticisms and everything, sure, okay, no, I mean, which again, no big deal. I respect that. But overall, I felt like the humor worked, the emotions worked, and the serious tone, I felt like they worked throughout the entire TV show. Because like every single moment that was in throughout these three elements, you felt for it. Like you felt it. You were there. Like none of them felt like out of balance. None of them felt overused or underused. Just perfectly balanced. And every single emotion, every single element, you felt it. If it's like humor, emotions, or serious tone. Also, one thing, of course, which is when if you're a Devil May Cry fan, of course, you're gonna search for it, which of course are Easter eggs and cameos. And Devil May Cry, I'm not gonna say it's filled with it, but there are quite a few Easter eggs and cameos in this one. Not to mention also some name drops as well. So that's the one thing I'm not gonna go very deep into it, but I will say, just brace yourself. If you're gonna watch this show, if you're gonna binge all 8 episodes, brace yourself, because there are a few, like I said, there are a few Easter eggs in this one, cameos and name drops that a lot of like Devil May Cry fans will be like surprised to hear or see. For sure. And I felt like even they had their place throughout this show. And with that being said, we have come to the final thoughts. Overall, for what I've seen, I enjoyed Devil May Cry 2025. I really, really hope, especially that with that ending that we got, I really hope that season 2 is gonna happen. I mean, it has to. But for what I've seen, I liked literally everything. From the character developments, from like the demons, from the villains, the story, the emotional, the humor, the serious moments, the action, like the animation for the most part. Well, 95% of it. I enjoyed all. Like even if my knowledge of Devil May Cry is very little, like this show really made me feel like man, I should really get some Devil May Cry video games after this, because of how good this TV show was. So overall, again, I had no big complaints about it. Like I said, my only complaint was like the 3D animation thing with the demons. That's the only complaint I had, but everything else was almost near perfect. Like I feel like of all the video game TV shows I've seen or video game projects in general, This is one of those that not only they respect the lore, but also at the same time they had a crew of people that know what they're doing, and the voice cast is simply pure perfection, all the way to the great Kevin Conroy. I mean, may he rest in peace. And with that being said, I'm giving this show, or should I say, season 1 for now, a 9 out of 10. I know there's going to be some people thinking like, oh my god, that's a little bit too much. But for what I've seen, it's well deserved. The only reason why it's not a 10 out of 10 is because, like I said, the demon animation thing that kind of bugged me throughout these 8 episodes, in and out. But still, 9 out of 10 is a pretty great rating for the show. Like I said, I really hope we get a season 2, especially with a cliffhanger, because trust me, this show is going to end with a cliffhanger. And if we're not going to get a season 2, a lot of people will be pissed off for sure. Because for what we got in season 1, that's one thing I will tell you. Because for what we got in season 1, it was just a little taste for what's coming next. Ooh, for sure. But with that being said, here I am done. I hope you guys have enjoyed my review. You guys know the drill. You comment, like, subscribe, give me all personal thoughts. If you have seen the show already, give me all personal thoughts. What did you thought about it? What did you like? What did you hate? What did you thought about Dante's character, Lady's character, about White Rabbit, Vice President Baines, everything about Devil May Cry in general, just put in the comment section down below. And as always, stay tuned for more. And like always, Lord of Shadows signing off. Or, as of course I always love to say, later, fuckers.